Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 29. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. This is a monthly show that discusses a wide range of communication skills principles going from public speaking, storytelling, emotional resilience, and much more. If you are listening from YouTube, do not forget to hit subscribe, hit that bell notification, and never miss another episode again. If you are listening from podcast, then I will give you a message at the end. In today's talk, I want to bring up some topics that I brought up before from a different angle, and I want to bring up a bunch of new topics as well. One of the topics that I brought up before that I want to discuss again is the concept of dog owners walking without leashing their dogs. And this has become an epidemic in Tampa. There are so many people in downtown Tampa that will walk with their dog. They have the leash in their hand, but they don't have their leash on their dog. So what happens with a lot of these dogs are they will go up to different people, start licking them, start sniffing them, and the dog owner does absolutely nothing. The dog owner thinks, since I like my dog, then other people must like the dog as well. But that is not the case. I've had moments when I wore a nice suit and randomly a dog just came up to me and started licking me and started to get its fur all over me. And the dog owner is just standing there and laughing. I want to hit this dog owner for being so selfish. I can't stand selfish people. And what happened 2 Saturdays ago was something very scary. Long story short, I opened my door. I'm about to go to my car to get some groceries. And as I'm about to do this, I get outside of my door. I feel something brush up against my leg. What was that? I look down and it's this huge pit bull. It starts barking loud. And I've seen pit bulls in cartoons before and in YouTube clips, but I never saw a pit bull this close. It starts barking because I rattled it and I run inside my house. Thankfully, I didn't lock my door and this pit bull starts running after me. And at that moment, I actually thought that this pit bull was going to get inside my house. And who knows what kind of havoc it would have wreaked. Luckily, I was able to shut my door before the pit bull got in. I was so scared. But after that terror, I became furious. I thought, where was this pit bull's owner? And it wasn't just a pit bull. I was looking through the little keyhole or whatever you call it, the door hole, and I saw another white dog that was just chilling around my spot. So context clues show me that most likely this owner was just taking these two dogs off of their leash, and these dogs were just going up to different homeowners, bothering them. Where was the owner? My philosophy is that whenever you give these people an inch, they will take a mile. So to kill off this epidemic immediately, whenever you see someone that is not leashing their dogs, you should report them, and the police officers should give them a $5,000 fine. I'm not joking, because the second you just keep turning a blind eye to this is the second that these people will start to abuse their power more. And they will abuse their power so much that they will create a new norm. In the future, they will get annoyed whenever someone asks them to leash their dog. They'll say, well, my dog has the same rights as you. You don't have a leash. Should I put a leash on you? And they'll start to get bold. So I believe this is the perfect time to nip this issue in the bud. But the annoying thing is that selfish people will always find a way to logically explain their behaviors. Many people think that selfish people lack intellectual prowess, but that's not necessarily the case. Selfish people can easily explain their intellectual positions, but the only problem is that their pool of data is limited. For a lot of these dog owners, they're not thinking about the collective. They are only thinking about themselves. And when you're only thinking about yourself, you're going to be able to create a lot of rationale to defend yourself. You can create arguments like me not leashing my dog has emotional happiness that benefits me and my dog. Why is that bothering you? Where someone else, they're just afraid of dogs. They don't know how else to talk about it. Now, this person, the dog owner, will say, well, what do you do when you have a fear? Are you just going to let it dominate your life, or are you going to do something about it? Now, the victim in this situation is not seen as a victim. He's just seen as a guy that is scared to conquer a fear. But the minute that you flip the tables on these entitled dog owners, they don't like it. For example, I don't mind snakes. I wouldn't say that I will just go up to a snake in the wild and I'll pet it or anything. But if a snake owner tells me, hey, Armani, my snake is completely harmless, then I will pick up the snake. I will put it around my neck. I will do whatever the snake owner is telling me to do to challenge and see how good the snake really is. Now, if you do that same thing to a lot of dog owners, they will not say yes to holding a snake. Now, if I am just walking around with a snake around my neck and I'm not considering these dog owners as feelings, you think they're going to like that? Absolutely not. This is why I believe we have to nip this issue in the bud right now because more and more dog owners are getting entitled. They are not leashing their dogs. And right now, it's okay. I mean, thankfully, that pit bull didn't bite me. But what if it did? And by the way, if someone doesn't believe me, I have the whole interaction recorded in my ring. It was almost this close to biting me, but luckily, it stopped. I wouldn't say I'm afraid of dogs anymore. In one of my videos, it's called Exposure Therapy. I talked about how I overcame my fear of dogs by gradually exposing myself to it. And I think that's how we can conquer a lot of fears. But there are situations where we have conquered the fear for the most part, but it's such a weird situation that we're being put in where the dog is running towards us that we suddenly go back to our child self and we start to feel that fear again. Similar with public speaking. You may do well with planned speeches, but with someone saying, hey, just give a quick toast, that's where you may struggle. I believe as I grow up, there is a lot of value to the micro speech. If someone asks you to give a toast, they don't want to hear a 7 to 10 minute speech out of you. They want to hear something roughly 1 to 2 minutes. And I started to learn the power of the micro speech when I was initially going to propose. When I was initially going to propose, right before I presented the ring, I had thought of a 7-minute speech. I thought, this is a very big life moment for me. In order to capitalize this big moment, I should lead it with a beautiful speech. Within the speech, there were a lot of adventures, some humor, some romance, all of that. A couple of days before I was going to propose, I had the speech memorized. I was going to deliver it. As whenever you memorize a speech, now you can just focus on the delivery. I was going to do that. But roughly 2 days before I was going to propose, I decided to check out Reddit. I thought, this is a new experience for me. I wonder if there's certain things that people went through in the past when they were going to propose that I should know about. I'm going through Reddit, and eventually I see a bunch of comments which are saying, when my husband proposed to me, I blacked out. And the reverse, where the husband said, when I proposed to my wife, she blacked out. And I thought, what did you mean when you said blacked out? And it's basically their body was there, but their mind was in La La Land. And I thought, well, if someone is blacked out, is it smart to present a 7-minute speech to them? No. And that's when I started to do some more research on how long a speech like this should be. And multiple resources said it should be 1 to 2 minutes long. Not even 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes is perfect. And that's when I got nervous because, wait, I only have 2 days until I'm going to propose. Now I'm supposed to strip this 7-minute speech into a minute and 30-second speech? Where there's a will, there's a way. You need to understand the power of micro speeches. Micro speeches are roughly 1 to 2 minutes long. And this is where, in Toastmasters, the table topics section comes in clutch. Because the table topics portion of the club, you're not supposed to give a long speech. If it's too long, then you will get disqualified. For a long time in Toastmasters, I didn't like that they would time our speeches. I thought, if I could speak for 15 minutes, why stop me? The reason why is because it's not practical in the real world. If you want to understand how to do micro speeches better, then you should go to Toastmasters and you should participate in more table topics. In addition to that, you should give more micro speeches in your life. If someone asks, who wants to give a toast? You raise your hand. If no one wants to even ask who wants to give a toast, you say something like, I will give a toast here. And then you give that toast. Other times, it doesn't have to be in celebrations. It could be in situations where your friend, he's about to take on the public speaking stage. He's super nervous. In this situation, rather than giving a micro speech in the toast format, you give it in a pep talk format. You give this nervous speaker some courage. It doesn't have to be 7 minutes long. By then, they've already been called on stage. So this is when you want to polish up your message, roughly 1 to 2 minutes long. And within communication skills, we often equate talking a lot as saying a lot. But that's not always the case. We can learn to strip down our message by writing more. I think if you get in the habit of writing blogs, for example, and you start to edit your own work, you understand the process of eliminating unneeded lines, rearranging lines, getting rid of entire paragraphs. And when you do this process of what they call killing your babies, that's when it's easier to master the micro speech. I would actually argue that it's harder to give a 1 minute speech than a 7 minute speech. Because with a 7 minute speech, you're able to get into your rhythm. But with a 1 minute speech, you need to be in your rhythm from the very get go. You need to immediately capture people. You need to immediately make them laugh or make them feel a certain type of way. It's difficult to do. That's why short stories are just a difficult process as a whole. Whenever you're in work, you will understand the power of micro speeches. I recall with a lot of these jobs that I used to do, when I was first starting my career, I was a little too wordy in emails. I thought me being wordy in emails showed that I put in effort in the email. But I saw that a lot of managing directors, a lot of executive directors, a lot of VPs during my internship were not putting in that same level of length. They would write a sentence or two, and I was shocked because a lot of these people had grammatical errors. It didn't matter though. For them, it was more so about the meaning. And another thing that you'll see as you rise in your corporate space with the titles is that you're capable of getting away with more in terms of the grammatical errors. People really don't care about that. You will see time and time again a lot of executive directors, they forget to add in a period. They don't, obviously, they're not going to add in a semicolon. Who uses semicolons? They will have typos. It doesn't matter. You're able to get away with more when you have those titles. One of the hot takes that I have is that if you are going to take that route in the corporate space, you should somewhat work for titles as well. I noticed that people treat you completely differently when you have a higher title than a lower title. And there was this one job that I had where the hiring manager, he said from the get-go, look, this is going to be a vice president position. And the reason that it's going to be a vice president position, Armani, is because this is going to be client facing. When it's client facing, if they find out you're an associate, they don't treat you with as much respect. It's not like they are blatantly disrespecting you. It's as though they are indirectly disrespecting you and they have no clue that they are. And I thought, that's pretty unique. Nowadays, if you go into the corporate space, you will see a lot more VPs, a lot more executive directors, and a lot more managing directors. Why? It's because a lot of these corporations now, and I'm talking big companies with over 20,000 employees. I'm not talking about companies with 500 employees. I'm talking about big, big companies. They go by microservices. So when I was first starting my internship, we didn't have microservices. For example, we would have a thing called IT department. But nowadays, it's not just IT department. It's host to host, managed file transfer services, Tandem, mainframe. There's different teams, different services within the department of IT. And within those different teams, there are hierarchies. There's associates, there's VPs, executive directors, and such. That's why before, if you were an executive director, you were seen as rare. That's not something that we consistently saw. But in today's space, it's way easier to see them. Now, this comes with the good and it comes with the bad. The good part is that there are more subject matter experts, where before, if there was some sort of, let's say, mainframe issue, the entire collective of IT was putting their resources in solving this issue. But nowadays, the mainframe team is only responsible for resolving this issue, while all the other teams within IT can still function BAU. So I would say that's the good thing. The bad thing, though, is that it's hard to find out who is responsible for an issue. I've had situations where I would get an inquiry from a client and I would transfer this inquiry to a team, and the team comes back at me with an attitude. Say, Armani, this isn't for me, this is for this team. Then I will transfer this email to the other team, and the other team is telling me that they're not responsible. So now I found myself doing another job, finding out who is responsible for this particular request. And this is one of those reasons why, whenever someone says that they predominantly write emails for a living, we don't want to immediately shoo that off as a easy job. It's not easy. To write even one email in a corporate space, it's somewhat difficult because there's a lot of moving parts happening behind the scenes. I mean, you have to, first of all, understand the request that is being asked from the client. If you don't understand it, then you need to educate yourself on it. Who knows how long that will take? From there, once you understand what the request is asking you, that's when you're starting to play tag. You're starting to see which team is responsible for it. They keep telling you that they're not responsible for it. You're spending who knows how long trying to find out who is responsible for it. Once you figure out who is responsible for it, now you got to actually make sure that they do the request. But they have other requests as well, so they start to give you attitude. They'll say, "Well, you got to wait because I mean, I don't know when I'll get to this." Now the client is reaching out to you, "Hey, any follow-ups?" And you're stuck in the middle. You're trying to help the internal team reach that resolution. You're trying to communicate to the client that it's not an easy issue. The client is telling you that it shouldn't be taking this long, and now you're just over here going back forth, back forth. Eventually, what happens is finally the issue is resolved, and this is when you write the email. Now, an outsider, they'll just be like, "Oh, you wrote an email, that's it." It's not just about the email, homie. There's a lot of back-ended processes that are required to write that email. Each job is different, and each job comes with its own set of headaches. I recall when I was in undergrad, there was this one guy that was trying to pledge the same fraternity that I was in, and he was telling me about a stage of his life where he used to own a bunch of strip clubs. Now, mind you, I'm 21 ish at that time, and this guy, it just turns out that he's in his 30s, which is a story for another time. I thought, why are you in your 30s trying to join a fraternity? But when he said he was owning a bunch of strip clubs, if you're a 21-year-old guy, you start to think like a guy. You're like, oh, bro, you're probably hooking up with all of them, right? It wasn't like that. What would happen was he had his own set of problems. A lot of these strippers, they had aggressive baby daddies. They would come out of the blue moon. Some of them would pull guns. I mean, it was just a tough business to be in. Right when he got his liquor license, apparently another license that he had expired and he couldn't function this strip club in a proper way. People would get too drunk. They would get too handsy. He had to always deal with lawsuits. The front end, it looked really nice to the average 21-year-old, but the back end is something that you don't want to deal with. And everyone's jobs, to a certain extent, are like that. The front end, it looks easy, but the back end is where things get difficult. I hope that a lot of the back end stuff slowly get automated with AI. You know, one reason I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk, I think he dominates too much of the conversation regarding AI. I don't always want to hear his thoughts in regards to AI. And he has done a really good job in making everyone fearful of AI. I mean, we are witnessing the rise of the modern internet. I mean, if you were living in the 90s and the internet was becoming a thing, at first you're not quite sure what it is, so you're skeptical. And I'm sure there's that one guy that's being overly skeptical. But the Elon Musk of that time in the 90s was Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, I think he gets a little too much hate. We have to appreciate that he is a pioneer in many ways, where his philosophy was I'm going to amp up the internet. I'm going to talk as positively about it as possible. And there were multiple news anchors that were always being overly negative with him. But Bill Gates said, no, trust me, you guys don't see it. The internet is eventually going to dominate and it's going to make our lives way easier. Now, is the internet going to bring some problems? Absolutely. Any new form of technology is going to bring problems, but he wasn't always focusing on the negative, getting people to be more close minded and dependent upon him. Or with Elon Musk, whenever news anchors are trying to talk about the positives of AI, he has this gloom and doom mentality of, oh, they're going to destroy us. Come on, dude. Bring that up, but bring up the positives as well. Talk about how this is the golden era. Talk about how many cool things you could do with it that you couldn't do with it in the past generations. I mean, for the ArmaniTalks brand, there are so many reasons that I use AI, from proofreading, from creating thumbnails, from creating images for my blogs. There's so many cool things that you could do with AI. And here's this one man that is putting a lot of shade on it. The thing with Elon Musk also is that he has these fanboys who are diabolical. I remember a long time ago, I wrote this blog post, which was, is Elon Musk a bad speaker? And if you actually read the blog post, I said, no, he is not. He is actually a great speaker because he drives people into action. The reason that a lot of people think he's a bad speaker is because he mumbles a lot. He is not loud in his voice. He's very soft spoken if you actually listen to him. But ultimately, I said that he is a great speaker. But the mere fact that I even wrote this blog bothered a lot of Elon fanboys. They start to write these hate emails to me. They start saying, well, who are you to criticize Elon? I mean, Elon is someone that is a pioneer. He's standing up to the evil, oppressive people. I thought, dude, I'm not even critiquing him like that. You got fooled by the title. You are a buffoon. A lot of people are his fanboys, and I'm a huge fan of him, by the way. But I'm never going to be a fanboy. There's a big difference between a fan and a fanboy. A fan is when you respect someone's work. A fanboy is when you ignore all of their flaws and you just act like the flaws don't exist. You think they only have strengths. With Jordan Peterson, for example, I'm a fan of him. I think he is a brilliant mind, but I am definitely not a fanboy. And you can see this because if you go through the Armani Talks channel, I'm a fan because I've talked about how I respect his articulation skills, but I've also dissed him as well. His recent Jubilee performance, I thought he did such a bad job debating. I mean, he seemed overly stressed. He was not making any great points. He's over here rambling a little too much. He did a very poor job. A fanboy would say, nope, he didn't do a poor job. He did a great job, and here's why. You want to make sure that you never fall into that fanboy territory because human beings are flawed. You should never worship a human being because the second that you start worshiping this human being, they will start to let you down in so many different ways and you will be blinded by it. These content creators that you see online, these are flawed humans, truly flawed. What I have been noticing with a lot of these content creators lately is that they have been opening up with their dark sides as well, which I think is somewhat refreshing. I believe there was this one girl, Isis Trophy Wife, where initially she was talking about how to be a trophy wife, and she was uploading content like that. Eventually, what happened was she uploaded a shocking video. It was titled, I Married a Monster. And within that video, she was talking about how her husband was touching her kids and she was filing lawsuits against him. And that video went super viral. I don't know if it's on YouTube anymore. It was shocking. It really was. And that's not the type of content that you really expect to see, especially from someone who presents a certain life of being a trophy wife. This whole idea of being a trophy wife, it comes with the good and it comes with the bad. And this is where you're going to learn a lot about human nature. If you ever go through TikTok, there's a bunch of these girls nowadays that's talking about my husband better pay for all of my bills. And these are women that wants all the bills paid for them, but they don't necessarily want to be a full-time homemaker. Now, being a full-time homemaker in today's generation, it's very different than being a full-time homemaker in the 50s. And I'm going to explain why. When you are a full-time homemaker, you're not getting income, which comes with the good and it comes with the bad. The good part is if your husband is making a lot of money and he's providing all the income, that's good to go. But he's going to have certain uh, requirements of you. You better clean up in the house. It better be clean. There should always be fresh meals, right? You can't just be staying at home and not doing anything. And that's a problem with a lot of these TikTok influencers, especially the women, where they want the guy to pay for all of the bills, embrace that provider mentality, while these same women, they'll say, we're going to split the chores in the house. It doesn't work like that. Whenever a guy is paying for all of your bills, eventually he's going to have certain requirements of you. And if you don't meet those requirements, that's when you guys are going to get into more arguments. That's why you always want to finish off the discussion with provider mentality and housemaker mentality. You could even say homemaker mentality. Whichever that allows you to equalize with the provider mentality. But if you're just thinking, how is the guy going to provide for me? And you, the woman, you're not keeping order of the house, then it's going to lead to a lot of arguments. This is stuff that you should be talking about in the beginning stages. And it's the same thing with guys, where the guy, he's going 50-50 with his girl, and then he expects her to cover everything in the house. It just doesn't work like that. And nowadays, we don't have clear roles. And this is one of the reasons why we should be able to articulate ourselves in a clear and concise way. It's going to help you build your philosophy in different ways. And the more that you build your philosophy, the better off that you will be. Where this ISIS trophy wife, where she messed up was she allowed this guy to pay for all of her bills. And she was trying to be a little too glammed up, in my opinion. She's putting on a lot of makeup and she's saying, this is how you take care of yourself, ladies. Now, if you understand really masculine men, they don't want too much makeup. They do want makeup, by the way. They want that natural look makeup, not the one where you look too caked up. Where this girl was talking a little too much about how you get caked up. That's not the right mentality to make for a homemaker. It doesn't work like that. Now, in addition to that, when you are getting all of your bills covered, there's a certain level of dependency that you're going to have. And that's one of the reasons why I say you definitely want to talk about this beforehand. My philosophy is the 70-30 principle, where the guy covers 70% of the bills and the girl does 70% of the housework. The ratio will truly depend, but it's a good ratio to identify from the beginning and you adjust along the way. Now, back to the makeup talk. The makeup talk has actually gave me a lot of insight into the gazes that different people work with. There was this viral debate that was going on Twitter about this one guy who went from somewhat bulky to becoming super ripped, and a bunch of the girls thought he looked better when he was bulky. Now, when he was bulky, he had a little bit of fat on him, so a lot of the guys didn't buy it. A lot of the guys thought the girls would like the ripped version more, but that wasn't the case. And this opened up a discussion about what men want and what women want in terms of looks. With abs, and I believe I have a good right to speak about this because I used to have abs. Abs opens up a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. Where when you have abs, you have to be shirtless all the time for people to see how much you work out. Now, with women, a lot of women, they want to feel protected next to their man. So whenever a guy gets abs and they shred a lot of the weight off of them, and the woman doesn't feel small near the husband, now she doesn't think that the husband is capable of providing and protecting as well. And this causes them to think, oh man, Is my husband still that powerful man? It's a subconscious thing that's happening. So the woman, she likes when the husband is his shirt is off and the abs are showing, but when he puts a shirt on and he looks like a stick, the wife doesn't like that. It's the same thing with a lot of men with women who wear makeup. They like that natural look. And if you're someone who says you don't like makeup at all, I don't mean to throw shade, but look at Alicia Keys or Pamela Anderson when they have no makeup on. They look pretty bad. With all due respect to them, by the way, they look pretty bad. So we don't want someone who has zero makeup on. We want someone with that natural look. And it's the same thing with women. They don't want someone who's super fat or who's super ripped, but is in that middle ground territory. And this is something that is difficult for men to realize that a lot of women, they like their men in that 15% body fat range or 20% body fat range. Where when I had abs, 20% was seen as a little too much. But in your 30s, that 20% surprisingly is good in many ways because you still have that big look, but you're not fat either. Where when you're in that 35 to 45% body fat range, now you just look fat. You don't even look like you work out. But in that 15 to 20% range, you still look like you work out. Hopefully you're working out. Hopefully you're not skinny fat or anything. You're working out, you're lifting, but you just don't have abs. We really need to contextualize what abs mean for men because just like we say that media affects women's body issues, the same with men. A lot of men are influenced by these magazines. And nowadays, our generation, it's Instagram, where they see these huge, ripped guys working out, and we think we got to look like that. But in the real world, that's not something that a lot of people want. Whenever a guy is too big, they stand out for all of the wrong reasons. I mean, I was walking in Walmart and I saw a bodybuilder, and the first thing I thought was, you're too big. You don't look good anymore. You don't look like Hercules. Where I think the last generation of good bodybuilders was with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, when I looked at him, he actually looked like a Greek god. Nowadays, these bodybuilders, they look like freaks. You're too big. Too much of a good thing easily can become a bad thing. And that's something that we learn more as we grow up. I love, let's say, meat, but I'm not going to necessarily do the carnivore diet. Did you ever see those guys that only eat meat all the time? You know, one thing I've noticed about them? Their faces are super red and greasy looking. And I could just tell it's a good thing that they're eating meat, but too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. And the way that people build certain diets in their 30s and 40s becomes a religion for them. With these guys that only eat meat, if you go up to them and ask them about fiber, ask them about carbs, other stuff, they have read so many research papers to justify that belief of why you could only eat meat that they will have a rebuttal for you. And ironically, it's the same thing with the vegans. The vegans have read so many research papers on why veganism is the number one diet that they will have a rebuttal for all the reasons you don't need animal protein. With certain diets, it becomes a religion. And this is something that I have fell victim to many times myself. I mean, I do OMAD. So I eat 7 meals a week. When I put it into perspective like that, that sounds surreal. Now, if someone offers me a snack, for the most part, I don't eat that snack. Because in some ways, OMAD, I'm a fanatic with that. If I, let's say, eat a bag of chips, then it's not me fully living that OMAD life. Now, with a lot of these carnivore people, whenever people are saying, well, why don't you eat some broccoli? It doesn't feel like they are fully living that carnivore life if they're even having an ounce of broccoli. If someone is giving me even just one chip, all I'm thinking is, I'm breaking my fast. And it's normal for us to have this religious like relationship with food because food is something that we eat every single day. And eventually we start to experiment. We start to go from having the food served to us with us trying to experiment with different dishes, us refining our taste, us using food in context to our fitness goals. Food eventually becomes highly personal. And this is one of the reasons that people build this hardcore philosophies towards their diets. I think it's good to build a hardcore philosophy, but also be somewhat open minded as well. For example, when I went to my cruise recently, I'm not still going to be doing OMAD in a cruise. In situations like this, I want to be a little bit more open minded, where with certain times, it's a principle based issue where you can't be more open minded. You can't go to a vegan person and be like, okay, it's vacation, so you could try steak, right? No, it's a principle based issue for them. Just understand that with plenty of people, for them, their choice of food, it's this cult like experience. This is a great way to build a community too, by the way. If you are lost and you have no clue how to make friends, go online and find, just type in carnivore group or veganism group, and you will see a bunch of people talking about this same stuff. And you will see that if you have food in common, you have a lot of other things in common as well. I recently started to understand how difficult it is to learn how to cook and how costly it could be. Because as of late, I've been trying to experiment with these new diets where it's roughly 5 ingredients. I don't need too many things. It hits my macros and all of that. But just experimenting with cooking, it's such a process. For example, I brought 5 pounds of chicken breast. I'm trying to cook it in bulk. And the first time, I over seasoned it. And if I mess up my chicken breast, I don't even want to eat it. I throw the whole thing away. So $14, boom, down the drain. The next time I make it, it's not seasoned again properly, right? And I just throw the whole thing away. The third time, I got the seasoning perfect. I marinated it perfect. And now I'm trying to pan fry it. But I noticed that the chicken is burning. Another $14 down the drain. I lowered the heat this time and I marinate the chicken. I put it on the pan. Once again, it's burning. I throw all that $14 away again. I almost spent $50 at this point, if not more, with all these seasonings and all of that other stuff, gas, all that included. I'm getting furious at this point, but now I'm invested. I need to figure out this perfect chicken breast recipe. And that's when I look down, I see on the stove, it writes power boil. Now I have to go on ChatGPT and figure out what the heck does power boil mean? Power boil means that this particular section of the stove, it's meant for boiling things fast. So it has higher heat than all the other ones. No wonder I kept burning my chicken because even if I put it on medium, medium is not necessarily medium in the traditional context. It's medium in the power boil context, and power boil is high heat. Now I understand. Just ignore this particular part of the stove, use the other one, and eventually I get the chicken breast right. It tastes delicious, and I feel good. But then I start to think, man, I just associated a very negative connotation with cooking. Whenever I'm going to experiment with new dishes, I am going to be spending a lot of money because what if it doesn't work out the first time? And you could follow these recipes. Sometimes the recipes you follow to a T and the food comes out perfect. But other times when you follow the recipe to a T, it doesn't taste like what you imagined. It doesn't taste good. Where I'm one of those guys, if it doesn't taste good, I'm not going to waste 4 days eating this meal. I'm just going to throw it all away and start over. Cooking does come with a lot of headaches, but once you figure it out, you have officially figured it out. Where nowadays I have this go to meal I eat 4 days out of the week, and 3 days I'll eat fast food. And having this level of consistency helps me out a ton. I almost spend $100 to get to this level of consistency. Whenever people say I don't want to cook, I completely get it. I talked about the power of no cook meals where you're just getting things that have already been cooked and you're heating it up. But we just have to build a good relationship with food as we grow up. And food is going to connect with other parts of our life. Whenever we have a speech coming up, for example, we may have a certain meal that is a part of our pre speech routine. Just like a lot of athletes, they have this pre meal routine before playing a game. Us as public speakers, we need to have a certain level of routines. For me, I like to go to a speech hungry, but I know people that will eat some salmon, some broccoli, and if they don't get that salmon and broccoli, they start to feel on edge. They know for a fact they can't use like Taco Bell food as an energy source before a speech. It's too greasy. But at the same level, you could use food as a motivator. For example, with me, I will go to a speech hungry, but when I know that I'm going to get whatever I want from Taco Bell after my speech, I feel this level of incentive. A lot of self improvement is hacking your body with incentives. Right now, for example, I'm recording this episode. After 1 hour is done, I'm going to basically get my content done for the week. Afterwards, I'm going to get some Popeyes. This is the incentive. So anytime I'm thinking, I'm getting tired right now, Popeyes wings are waiting for me. Popeyes actually has been doing a brilliant job marketing their wraps. Anytime I go on TikTok now, I see different people eating the Popeyes wraps. Oh my God, so good. 10 out of 10. And the first thing I think is, who gets this excited about wraps? It's one thing if it's a chicken sandwich, but a wrap? But the way that these people are eating it, oh my God, so freaking good, makes me want to eat it. Influencers are super powerful for restaurants. Think about Chili's, for example. I recall in my childhood, it consisted of Applebee's and Chili's, and I loved these two spots. Now, roughly around 2012 to 2016, people stopped going to these spots. They either started to go to McDonald's and stuff more, or to places like Chipotle more. But with the rise of TikTok, Chili's, I mean, the way that certain people eat it, they're eating that mozzarella stick, that amazing cheese pull. It looks so good. And now I want Chili's as well. Restaurants, they should partner with influencers. And it's the best when they don't even have to manually partner. It's just organically happening. Where with Popeyes, I think it's organically happening. Popeyes is a brilliant case study of you could do a lot of things wrong, but if you do that one thing right, then you'll do everything right. Where with communication skills, I say that's listening. If you listen effectively, then often you will do a lot of things wrong. Your voice will sound jaggedy. You may be nervous. You may talk a little too fast. But if you actually make that other person feel heard, suddenly you did everything right. It's weird. Same thing with Popeyes, where Popeyes super slow. They're always out of food when you ask them, hey, do you have this? Rude staff. Everything's wrong with that. But the food is amazing. And that's why they have a consistent fan base. I actually recall there was a time when KFC was way bigger than Popeyes. I don't know nowadays if KFC is still bigger than Popeyes. Just in a terms of a cultural aspect, Popeyes has way more relevance than KFC. But roughly around 2008 to 2009, KFC was that cultural juggernaut. You kind of went to Popeyes if KFC was KFC didn't have the food that you wanted, or they were just closed for whatever reason. But people who really ate at Popeyes, they knew that Popeyes had amazing food. And a lot of people for Popeyes were recruiters for them. They'll say, stop going to KFC, man. Trust me, you want to go to Popeyes. I don't know if you remember this. This just shows how old I am. But there was a period when Oprah bought the entire US KFC. Do you remember that? I believe I was in high school then. And at first I thought it was a joke. What you had to do was you had to print out this coupon and then you would go to KFC and they would just give you a free meal. The first time I printed out this coupon and they gave me a free meal, I was shocked. Oprah, thank you. And I started to cheat the system just like everyone, where they just kept printing different coupons over and over and over again and just kept getting more and more free meals. And the people, the workers, they recognized us. It actually was hilarious because a lot of the times I would go in and I would see the same people using that coupon again. And whenever I would see homeless people asking for food, I would ask them, hey, don't you know Oprah bought everyone KFC? And they were skeptical just like me. And that's when I felt generous and I gave them one of the coupons. They got up, they tried it out, and they said, wow, I just got this meal completely on the house. This happened for some time. And you know how it is. Whenever there's a good thing going on, there's always going to be a bunch of morons ruining it. Eventually, what happened was, this is when Facebook was becoming a thing. Facebook videos were becoming a thing. There was this one guy who was talking about, Oprah's a very evil woman for buying everyone free chicken. She knows what she's doing. I thought, oh, great. What is she doing? And he starts talking about how these chicken, it's really bad. You shouldn't be eating it consistently, blah, 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 blah. And I get it, dude. I'm not going to KFC because I'm trying to eat healthy. I'm trying to just get the free food. But this guy started a movement and eventually, uh, I mean, obviously, this wasn't going to go on forever. Oprah wasn't going to keep buying people KFC meals. But it just, I feel like it ended sooner than expected because this guy was moaning and groaning so much. And this is something you will notice whenever you're trying to do good things for people, there's always going to be that one person who ruins it for everyone. I was on my Instagram feed, and there was this one guy that passes out food to the homeless people. And most of these people, they're being very grateful. And then there's this one girl who gets this Philly cheesesteak, and the first thing she asks is, nothing to drink? And then the guy says, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have anything to drink. And in the comments, everyone's just going against this guy who's giving out free food to everyone, saying, well, next time you give free food, I recommend you give them a drink as well. And I think, dude, shut up. He's giving them free food. He doesn't even have to do something like that. Whenever people are doing something nice, you definitely want to be grateful. If people are not grateful and it doesn't register in their conscious, then what's the incentive to keep on doing it? I'm pretty sure my philosophy will change regarding this in the future, but I'm one of those guys where if I do something sweet for you and you're not grateful, then I'm just going to stop doing it for you. Where other people, they're not going to be like that. Where if someone's not grateful with them, they'll keep on doing it until this other person they reach an age to be grateful. And I think that's something that I need to work on. For example, if like within our culture, there's a holiday called Eid where you give out money to people. I recall there was one year I was just giving money to different kids, and they weren't saying thank you. I thought, wait a minute, man. I'm over here pulling hundreds of dollars from my bank account. I'm giving you guys money, and not a single one of you guys are saying thank you. One guy said thank you. Good for you. But the majority, they didn't say thank you. And ever since that day, I just stopped giving these kids money. Now, a lot of people, they'll listen to this and they'll say, well, Armani, you're being a little unreasonable. What if next year they'll say thank you? Or what if you just keep giving them money anyways out of the goodness of your heart? I'm just not one of those guys, man. I know that's not the right thing to say, but I'm not one of those guys. Same thing with giving stuff to homeless people. I know certain people that will give stuff to homeless people and they'll say, it makes me feel a lot better. I'm not one of those guys. Whenever I give something to a homeless person, afterwards I feel annoyed. I start to think, man, I could have spent this $10 on a book cover design, right? I could have spent it on a meal for myself. I mean, this homeless guy, he just got the $10 out of me because he kind of harassed me right before I was about to enter an establishment. And he's going to need the money again in just a couple of hours. So I'm not one of those guys that feels good giving money to homeless people. I know certain people feel good giving money to homeless people, but for me, it's not that. You know what I feel really good about? When I help someone understand something. Whenever I can help someone understand something, I feel this level of relief. Because I think great explanations in the information age is the most powerful skill set to have. Because when you can explain something and other people understand it, where you're not just explaining it with big words, but other people are comprehending what you're saying, it's kind of like you're rebooting someone else's operating system. Now, imagine if someone has the same operating system from 2008, their beliefs haven't changed because they're ingrained in who they are, and your words are capable of changing how they perceive life. This happened with this one 65-year-old public speaking guy that I knew, where his whole philosophy was the only way for me to get my message out there is to host live events. And he would always have these roundtables. So he would pass out flyers and he would have these roundtables once a month. They were fun. They were a great way to socialize and meet people face to face. But he didn't like the idea of YouTube. I had a YouTube at the time. He would listen to some of my talks, but he just said nothing beats in-person events. Eventually what happened was COVID happened And I started to explain the concept of YouTube more to him. And one day I showed him the different people that read my blog. And with Google Analytics, there's this map that they show. And within this map, whenever it's dark blue, that means people from that area is reading your stuff. Now, in terms of this map, most of this map was blue. That means I wouldn't say most of the people of the planet, but most countries, there's at least 1 to 5 people from most parts of the world that are reading the ArmaniTalks blog. When he heard it like that, wait a minute, you have the world in your palm? I said, absolutely. Now imagine with YouTube how this is working out. Your message, it doesn't only need to be heard by people in Tampa. It could be heard by people in Nigeria, in Canada, in Australia, and much more. And when he heard it like that, it completely rebooted his operating system. And that's when he started to invest more in new media. So he could go beyond his limited location. Being able to explain something to someone is a powerful feeling. Now, speaking of, it's cool whenever my message is being heard around the world, and it gets me more curious about the world. It makes me more curious about Europe, about Australia. I actually just came from Mexico, and ever since I came from Cozumel, Mexico, I've just been really curious about Mexico as well. Well, as I was doing my research on how cool the world is, I noticed that a lot of Australians and Europeans hate the US. So I started to go through TikTok, go through YouTube, go through Instagram, start to get a lot of content about overseas people talking about Americans. And time again, they were disrespecting Americans. And that's when I heard an American rebut something in a very clever way. They said, it's really shocking, but with Australians and Europeans, they don't like Americans. It's a very one sided beef where Americans, they're not necessarily thinking about Europeans and Australians at all. But the other is not necessarily true. Australians and Europeans are thinking a lot about the Americans, where you could think of the most cartoonish thing about an American, and it's really easy for a European and an Australian to believe it. For example, the loud talking. I mean, that's something that a lot of Europeans and Australians most likely experienced. But even before they experienced it, they probably just have this preconceived notion because their friends have experienced it and their friends have brought it up to them. But this one creator said, I wonder if we say something like Americans wake up at 6 a.m., go back to sleep at 7 a.m., wake up again at 8 a.m. Just something silly. It doesn't make any sense. How easy it will be to make Europeans and Australians believe it. Due to the hatred that Europeans and Australians have for Americans, it'll probably be very easy for them to believe it. When you hate something, it's so easy to believe the stereotypes about them. And I don't know why they hate Americans that much. Where one of my dreams, it's to go to Australia. And I'm over here reading these different articles, and there was this one American that went to Australia when he was a little kid. He did this summer program with them, and all the kids, they were just making fun of the American. They were just making fun of the military about their weird quirks and just saying that Australia is better than the US. And I thought, man, where is this coming from? Americans love Australians. Why don't Australians love the US? And that's when I thought, probably jealousy. I mean, I can't think of another reason. Maybe there are other reasons that people can logically explain, but I believe it's due to jealousy. Who knows? I still want to go to Australia though. I still want to go to Europe. After this recent trip to Mexico, I just want to travel the world. Everyone has that burning desire to travel the world, but it gets dim for a while. Where in 2017, I just kept going from one location to another, went to Hawaii, went to Bahamas, went to Chicago, was exploring different places. But 2017 to 2024, my traveling was dormant. And now 2025, I've been going to different spots. I feel good. Whenever you're feeling, I would say, stagnant in your life, even if you don't have that much money, I think you should scrape together some money to travel to recharge. because when you recharge, it makes you a go-getter so you can get more money. I want to leave you with this one final thought, and I'm going to wrap up today's episode. There was this talk that I once heard that said, whenever you're feeling cheap, you're going to make less money. But whenever you're giving money away, whenever you're spending a little bit luxuriously on yourself in the self improvement space, that's seen as a very bad thing. That means you're irresponsible with money. But this guy, he's a millionaire. He's saying whenever he's giving away a lot of money, he's spending a lot of money on his experiences, time and time again, the money would come back and it would multiply. And I noticed that this is actually very relevant for my life. For a while, I was just spending a lot of money on different experiences, and my bank account was getting lower, lower, lower. And out of nowhere, I just look at my bank account nowadays, and it's way more than it's ever been. It's like the money just came back to me. So if you have that abundance mentality of the money will come back, and you prioritize your experiences, you prioritize having good times, you're living this life once, don't just be counting pennies all the time. Obviously, you want to be responsible, but you don't want to be just counting your pennies. Oh no, I can't do this. It's 50 cents more expensive. It's 50 bucks more expensive. Then you're conditioning this mindset where you're always going to be poor. But when you're spending a little freely at times, you may think that this money isn't going to come back. And temporarily, your money is lowering. But in the bigger picture, that money comes back. This probably may not be the best advice for a lot of these Ramsey folks, but it's something that has been true in my life. And it's a philosophy that I want to live more as I continue to mature, I continue to experience different parts of the world. Now, with that being said, for those people who are listening to these episodes on podcast, be sure to review my podcast, whether it's on Apple, whether it's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever. Each review helps a ton. What's What's annoying is that people who actually like the stuff never review, but people who don't like the stuff, they are full of words. There are so many times I'll get comments on my book Speakeasy right here, Speakeasy. I get DMs. I'll go on LinkedIn, I'll go on Facebook, different people commenting about how this book transformed their life, how it helped them simplify speaking skills. They love it so much. Where's the review, homie? Leave the review. The only people that are leaving the reviews often are the people that hate the book. They'll say, oh, it didn't help me at all. And they're very liberal. I mean, it has a 4.1 out of 5 stars on Amazon, but it could have a 4.7 if more people who actually enjoy the content are leaving the reviews. Luckily, this book is a moneymaker in Audible. It creates so much income on Audible, and luckily more and more people are leaving reviews there. I roughly have 80 reviews at the time of recording, and the rating is a lot higher there. It's like 4.4, 4.5. So if you have read Speakeasy or you have read any of my other works and you enjoyed it, even if you didn't enjoy it, whatever, just leave a review. Each review, whether positive or negative, I enjoy, and it helps me out a ton. So leave the reviews. Now, with that being said, I think yesterday was my anniversary of starting Armani Talks. What is it? 7 years? I started in 2018. It's 2025. Yeah, so it's been almost 7 years. A lot of content has been created. And I believe in the future, what's going to happen is that we're going to have artificial intelligence where you could feed your content, your books, blogs, tweets, podcasts, and much more into this large language model. And you can create unique products. I think in the future, consulting is going to be completely different. Right now, whenever someone wants to book consulting services with me, I have to physically be there. But in the future, I'm going to have an Armani LLM where you could ask Armani any questions and I don't have to be there anymore. Maybe you have to buy this product. So suddenly consulting is going from a service based business into a product based business, which is something I like. I think content is king, especially with the Armani Talks brand. So within the 7 years, I've built a lot of content. Where someone else sees content, I see big data. That big data is eventually going to be fed into large language models, and you may even see virtual Armanis floating all around, virtual cartoons. You're going to see a lot of cool things in the future. The Armani Talks brand, I'm designing it in a way where it grows with time. It embraces technology. It doesn't ever try to fight technology. With that being said, thank you very much for joining me. If you're listening from YouTube, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification, never miss another episode again. And if you're listening from podcast, be sure to leave me a review.